This is some Professor Chaos.
Oh yeah,
It's a solid sativa,
pretty
and it's
sleek. Looks pretty sleek.
Professor Chaos is the strain. The tool is a Puffco, but it gets to the point. So I like to consume my cannabis any way I can. It's in my orange juice, in a liquid form. It's in the dab form. Thank you for joining us here today on another episode of Potheads Pondering. I'm Lotta with the Bakersmen Collective, and today we have Shakur Mashira. Did I say that all right? Yeah, right. I've been practicing. Shakur Mashira of Angatha Agro. And Angatha Agro has been with us in the background since a random webinar, and we became LinkedIn friends, Shakur and myself. And we kind of geeked out on cannabis and hemp and became fast friends since. We at T.B.C are working on our merchandise line, as you've seen off and on, and Shakur is our Indian connection to said merchandise line. So I thought that we could come together and talk about the process, because I kind of just dropped the merch out there on you guys in the beginning and didn't tell you really what kind of work went into developing any of it. So in the background, Shakur, please tell us a little bit about yourself and Angatha Agro.
I mean, I'm glad to be here, Charlotte. I mean, it's been a great journey. I mean, as you know, I'm glad that we've known since each other since day one. And both of us have seen our companies kind of grow. Like,
Correct.
I still remember T.B.C, and you guys were still developing a website, and Angeta Agro, where we still didn't have our social media handles. We just kind of editing webinars and connecting with people, and now here we are. you
Right.
know
Full on
yeah.
companies. It's kind of as Nipsey would say, if you stay down, you'll reach success. You'll eventually find it. But you have to stay in it. You have to stay working. So
Yeah, correct. So a little bit about Angeta Agro. We at Angeta Agro, we work with products of value derived from the cannabis plant. So right now we mainly work with fabrics, clothing, home decor, basically anything made from fabrics. And our vision is to create India's largest cannabis farming community. And we want to use this plant as a tool to, uplift and empower the rural farming communities in India. And yeah, that's what we're working towards. And it's a large vision, so baby
right.
steps. You gotta
It's
so
never simple. Like, but you start out like you don't realize it. Like so. How do I say this? You say that and it's a large vision, and you have to tell yourself it's a large vision, because at first it's very tiny. It's like, oh, this is just what I want to do. And then you realize how many steps you have to take to even get to this vision. And it like sets in, oh my gosh, I have this amazing, very large purpose and goal in life, and I have no idea what journey I'm going to take to get there. And
yeah,
that's kind of how T.B.C was for me, like I just wanted to capture my friends, like the conversations I had with other people about cannabis. That's it. Like that was the initial. I looked around and I saw the conversation we're having, and I was like, why don't I see this on TV? And now here I am, podcast, merch, website, trying to like all of these things that I didn't know was going to go into it. So I'm sure you hit a few like things along the way that you realize to get this to get all of the Indian cannabis community together. I've got to start here, right? So where did you start?
so I mean, if we have to go back to like day zero, literally. So I was introduced to the cannabis plant like any other 19-year-old around the world is, right? So yeah, I mean, I was at college and there was a lot of recreational consumption of cannabis around me. I may or may not have been consuming it, but yeah, there was a lot of cannabis consumption happening around me. So whenever I find something interesting, I like to kind of go deep into it. I really want to read up on it and really cover the depth.
Yeah,
So now
research.
what we did, so now I started reading up about the cannabis plant, right? So like obviously everyone knows the recreational uses, but then as I started reading more and more and like, watching documentaries, reading articles, looking at other companies and like, probably other more developed economies. And I saw that apart from the recreational part, there's also a medicinal and industrial aspect to it. So now the medicinal aspect is also still spoken about to a certain extent. It might not be very conventional yet, but it is still spoken about. Like people are aware that
Yeah,
yeah, there are
it needs
medicinal
to be
uses to it.
pushed more,
But
honestly.
yeah. But the industrial part was something that I found very interesting because I felt that damn man, this is a plant that can be used to, I don't know, shelter us, feed us, clothe us, heal us, and like there's so many aspects to it. And we are only focused on like one small part that yeah, it gets you high. And yeah, okay, maybe I can use it as a medicine. So the industrial aspect of it got me, really thinking, got sucked me into the plant, you could say in a way, because the fiber is very versatile. You can use it to make fabrics. In fact, this t-shirt that I'm wearing, it's a hemp t-shirt. So yeah, I mean, I started reading up about the fiber and the use cases, and like it can also be used to make bioplastics. It can be used to make
Right.
paper and whatnot. It can also be used to make bricks to build
Right.
like houses.
That
And I
that
mean,
that like is exactly what we had brought up in our Baked and Blessed of 3 event with the panelists. Like we were trying to, like, there's the cannabis industry is so vast, but if you look at the industrial aspect, that itself, what you can do with the plant is so vast that there is an opportunity for anyone who has one career, like some form of interest in something, some skill set, to then replace it with cannabis made material,
yeah,
and find success. Like you can transfer it, and we as laborers, the BIPOC community, as a whole, needs to start evaluating how we can make this flip and gain generational wealth. Like this is the time is now, right? And
yeah.
so like I'm glad that that's what captured your vision. I think that because that captured your vision, that's what made me want to talk to you even more. I mean, as a person, like someone has to see that, and you immediately did for your family and then kept going. Keep going. I'm sorry, no mean to interrupt your story. I'm listening.
No, no. So yeah, I mean, the fiber part, the industrial aspect of it really caught my attention because I mean, at first even I found it unbelievable that can you really make a brick from this plant and build houses? Can you really make fabrics from this plant? And yeah, I mean, as I read more about it, and then I bought a few hemp products myself. Again, this was way before the company. This was when I was still in college and still studying and trying to figure out what I want to eventually do with my life. So this was really interesting. And in India, the like the economic situation is like almost more than half our population depends directly or indirectly on agriculture for a living. And when I say more than half our population, that's like around I don't know, that's a lot of people, man. That's like around 600 million.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So that's huge, like I mean 600 million people depend on like one industry directly or indirectly for their livelihood, right? And there's just a bunch of crops that are traditionally grown here, like just like the same old 3-4 crops that have been grown here for like decades and decades and decades. And yeah, I mean, I thought this plant, since like it's a plant, right? So I mean, I realized that it could definitely transform the agricultural industry as well. Like it could serve as a really nice modern 21st century cash crop for the Indian farming
Absolutely.
communities. Because
Absolutely.
like what intrigues me about this plant is, so now let's say I mean, let's say I'm a farmer, right? And right now I grow let's say rice, right? I grow rice, I'm a farmer. But now what happens is rice, the I'm dependent on one or maximum two industries to purchase that commodity from me and like, pay me a fair price for it, hopefully. But when I grow the cannabis plant, I am not dependent on any one or two industries. I mean, I can sell it to whichever industry I want, right? I mean, if I like let's say depending on the kind of grow that I have, I could sell it to a pharmaceutical company for them to like I don't know, extract the
Yes,
cannabis,
go
make
ahead.
or if like the fiber, like if I grow the plant really tall, I can sell the fiber to the, let's say, the fashion industry. They can spin yarns from it. So now what happens is the power is in my hand. I have the negotiating power. I decide, like, I have options to choose from. I'm not dependent on one company or one industry, and like to buy my commodity from me.
Exactly. And
This is,
in here in America, what that has done, like create like the agricultural industry at least has, you can see the effects of being dependent, like the wheat industry, like, right, the people who grow that crop, they haven't seen an increase in payment for that in decades and years because it's under control, right? And that's like
exactly.
across the board. They only have one place to sell it to, and the government isn't
Yeah.
trying to increase it. Now that's why the dairy industry is struggling. You know what I mean? The meat industry. Like, if you've got to
Yeah.
look at that, they only have one avenue or place to sell it, and cannabis sells everything. And anyone who knows money is paying attention to it, which is why they're trying to control it and regulate it the way that they are right now. So that then it comes down into the hands of very few. The problem is cannabis is versatile. It has always been for the people, of the people, by the people. And so the people will use it however they need to, regardless of your legislation or regulation. So
Yeah.
I'm
Exactly.
like, I love it. I love that you pointed that out, because people fail to see that it's not just because cannabis can be used for everything that it's so great. It's because you can sell it to everyone. And like, the demand for cannabis will never die, right? Especially if the like the demand for good quality products, even on just the consumable side, will never die. But if I made something crappy, if my crop grew bad, I can wash it and turn it into a concentrate. I can use the stems and sell it to someone else. There is still, if I'm thinking like ahead of time, if I'm thinking and I'm aware of what is happening in this process, nothing is left behind. There's no waste.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I mean, I was just gonna say that it's a zero waste plant. I mean, each and every part of it is utilized in one way or another. Like, there is no. I mean, if you have grown cannabis in your field, it won't go to waste. It's not gonna be a loss. You're not gonna be like, okay, like, I've lost money. You'll if you're smart enough, you will figure a way out to kind of derive some value from that plant, and like, get some economic value from it.
So then, what exactly goes into like producing hemp textiles? Like, right? So we know what captured your attention and what got you here, and we know for sure how widely cannabis can use. But like you settled on, well, you started out with, okay, we're gonna produce textiles. What's that process like? As someone who, I just was like, man, I would love to have clothing made out of hemp. That's what came to me. I like I didn't turn to an expert to be like, so how do I get this material, and what is it going to mean for my consumers? And it wasn't until you sent me all those swatches that I was like, oh, this is a more intensive process when you're trying to decide just a simple shirt material, but much less taking it from raw plant into that. Talk to me.
Yeah. So see, I mean, I'll try to keep it very simple. So now what happens is, for when you're growing the cannabis plant for, let's say, specifically for producing fabrics, right? So what happens is, ideally the plant should be really tall, so that you're able to get longer fibers, and they're easier to spin into yarns, and you get a higher quality yarn with it. So that's the first part. Like, I mean, if you're plant if you intend to grow specifically for fabrics, make sure your plants are really tall. And like, again, I mean, I'll be honest with you, I don't have any experience with farming cannabis, but why the plants get tall is because, when there's a scarcity of sunlight. So usually, so India has a lot of geographical zones, right? So now these tall cannabis plants usually grow on the mountain and hilly regions, because there's a scarcity of sunlight. So the plants are kind of like, fighting and trying to
They're
grow tall.
reaching. They're reaching. Right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're reaching out for the sun. So first things first, your plant needs to be really tall so that you get very long, strong fibers that can be spun into yarns. So now what happens is then you kind of harvest the plant. And then after harvesting, there's a little bit of processing that needs to be done. So that includes like retting, making the fibers smoother. Like, it's just like to put it simply, it's kind of just like combing through the fiber to make it
Okay.
silky and smooth.
Okay.
And then once that is done, then it goes to like the industrial level of processing. That silky smooth slightly processed fiber
Right.
is then spun into yarns.
Okay.
And then after that, it's like any other fabric. You take those yarns, you dye them, and like into whatever color you want, white, black, blue, whatever. Like, I mean, if you want a natural finish, you can go for a natural finish. But yeah, I mean, that
Well,
is kind of how it works.
thank you. Yeah.
Uh,
You mentioned that it naturally grows in the mountains of India, and so my brain instantly wanted to know, then why isn't it already a cash crop for the community? Like, we know you have the textile manufacturing agricultural experience as it, India as a whole. So like, why isn't it readily available?
Yeah, I mean, see, that's a really good question, and this is a question I ask myself every day before I start working. Why isn't it legal? Why aren't we building an industry out of it? So now, I mean, I feel there's several ways to look at this, right? So one thing that I feel now there are a couple of points that I'll cover, but the first one is a phenomenon I think which occurs around the world, not just in India, is that whenever it comes to the cannabis plant, right, everyone looks at it from a certain lens. So like some people just they don't care about the medicinal or the industrial. They just like cannabis is a drug, ban it. There's that kind of fear around it
Right,
that
reefer
I don't want this.
madness.
Yeah, exactly. Reefer, the whole reefer madness thing, right? I mean, they just look at it from that lens. And no matter how much research or how many conversations you have with them, like that doesn't change. They just look at it from that lens. And now, specifically in India, the problem is we look at it from a very colonial lens. Like, I mean, you won't believe it. Until very recently, cannabis was actually not illegal in India. I mean, and when I say recently, I mean until 1985, which is not that long ago. I mean, it's been a while. 85 was a while ago, but it's not
But
that
no,
long
in the
ago.
terms
Right?
of history, not at all.
It's not that far away. Yeah. So until 1985, cannabis was actually like, I mean, there was no prohibition on it. You could literally walk up to a cigarette shop. They're called pan shops here in India. You could walk up to a pan shop and get your cannabis. I mean, it was that simple. And like, I mean, you won't believe it. Maybe not the bud, but we actually they used to process it and make finished products from it. Like, I mean, they'll make like these small uh these small tablets which kind of look like hash balls, like just
Oh,
for the lack of a, it
yeah,
looks like
yeah,
hash. Yeah, it looks like hash, and it's like a small cylindrical ball, spherical
yeah, like
ball.
a temple ball.
And yeah, and that actually helps you with digestion. I mean, it won't, it will. I don't know. Again, I wasn't born in 1985, but like I don't know whether it got people high or not. But it was a very common occurrence
You
in
could
India.
buy
Like
it.
you have your dinner, you
Mhm.
go for a walk to the pawn shop, you get a bhanki goli, that is the cannabis ball, the temple ball. You eat it because it helps you with digestion and helps you sleep better. And in fact, like even if you go before that in India, like I mean, you could say the 1900s, right? All the daily wage laborers, like they used to like that, because daily wage laborers, it's a lot of physical work. It's literally like hard
Absolutely.
physical work. So what they used to do was, again, they're not scientists, right? But they were smart enough to figure out that, hey, my body hurts after a day of long work, so they wouldn't drink. They just smoke weed because it helps like with muscle recovery. And like they smoke weed, they hang out, they eat a hearty meal, they go to sleep, and next day they're up and ready to work
Ready to
again.
do it again.
Yeah, and like I mean, I'm not trying to romanticize their difficult life, but what I'm saying is they cracked the code. They knew that this substance actually enhances muscle recovery, and it helps me with the pain and the soreness. So my point here being that cannabis has been a part of Indian culture, and like I can bring so many other instances. So in fact, we have a festival here in India called Holi, right? So so
I'm
Holi
coming.
Holi is the festival of colors, and it's celebrated throughout the country, right? And now during Holi, there's a very it's a very famous and very common drink. It's called thandai, right? Now that thandai is basically it's milk, dry fruits, and cannabis, and it's everyone consumes it during Holi, like literally everyone. Like
That's right.
they drink thandai, they get high, they play with colors, and it's a whole
It
social
seems like a
occasion.
blast on social media. Thank you, Snapchat, for giving me world views on because I want to be there.
No, for sure. I mean, you should definitely drop at least once for Holi. I'd love to host you here. But yeah, I mean, it's that common. And you know what the funny part is? Like, what makes it clear about this whole colonial lens is the fact that now, if you go to an average Indian today, right now, right, you ask them, hey, should ganja be legalized? Should cannabis be legalized? They're just gonna like give you a very dirty look and be like, oh, don't, it's drugs. Like, I mean, no. But then you say bhang. Bhang is the cannabis plant in the Indian language. It's called bhang, right?
Okay.
So if you ask them, what are your views on bhang? Do you think bhang should be legal? They're just gonna say, dude, isn't bhang legal? I mean, like, I just consumed it. Like, so
Stop.
there's still that gap. People still don't understand that, cannabis, ganja, bhang, everything, it's all the same plant. It's the one plant. Like, there's no
Because
difference
language
between.
has always been used to confuse the masses. We will change how
Exactly.
it's said. Right.
Exactly. And I mean, I just find it very funny. Like, in fact, when I started this business, I had to, like, kind of tell my family, what am I doing? So initially, I used to use the, colonial English words like, cannabis, marijuana, hemp, whatever. And they didn't quite get it. They were like, dude, isn't this illegal? I mean, like, what kind of a drug business are you? I was like, no, 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 it's not a drug business. And then I started speaking to them in our language. I was like, hey, this is not drugs, it's bhang. I'm just making clothes from bhang. Is that really so bad? And surprisingly, they were more understanding after that. They're like, oh, bhang, okay. Like, it was like, oh, that's something I'm familiar with. So I mean, that's the scene here. I mean, we've been brainwashed into believing that something that has always been a part of our culture for like 200, 300, I don't even know how many fucking 100 years. And we've been brainwashed into believing that no, this is a very dangerous foreign substance that we should not
Consume.
allow.
Right.
We should not consume. We should not let it go freely around in our country.
Meanwhile,
And
the government that started that message, United States, owns
yeah.
patents for the
Yeah.
medical use of this plant. Like, you are dramatically affecting countries across the world with your legislation and how things happened, but you already saw the potential of wealth that it could bring for your country if you owned it.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, just to add one last point to the whole, the like US lobbying and kind of pushing other countries into like, making these draconian laws around this plant. So in 1961, there was a UN drug convention treaty that was signed with all the member countries that, these are certain substances that are going to be prohibited in all of our countries, right? So that time when cannabis came up, in fact, the Indian delegation was the one that asked for an exemption, because they were like, dude, we cannot ban this substance in our country because, like, it's a part of our culture here. And there was a pushback from the other end as well. So what happened is that they said, okay, fine, we'll ban the buds, we'll ban the resin, we'll ban the buds and the resin, but you have to let us add an exemption for the leaves, because the leaves are what are used to make like
Right.
the thandai and all of these other cultural drinks and all of those things. So we that exemption for the leaf, it exists till date. Even today in the Indian the NDPS Act, it's called the Narcotics, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act, and enacted in 1985. That exemption for the leaf still exists.
That's
Like, I
right.
mean, yeah. So I mean, it's just funny. I mean, it's more of a matter of we need to stop looking at it from a certain lens, and we just have to be neutral about it. Like, I mean, I was a business major, right? So yes, cannabis, there was a lot of cannabis consumption going on around me, but end of the day, I looked at it as a cash crop. I was like, okay, forget everything. I'm purely from a business point of view. This is a great cash crop. The people growing it don't have to depend on one industry, and that'll boost their income. That'll boost the economic growth in the particular region where it's been growing. So I mean, I just feel that we all need to stop looking at it from a certain lens and just look at it from a neutral point of view, like a purely neutral scientific point of view.
Right. So, I hear you because I have a scientific brain. And like once I started researching the science behind why I felt the way I felt about cannabis use throughout my life since 14 years of age, like what it's done for me. Once I understood the science behind of like how they met, then I was like, wow, okay, you can't you can't question why I use this, right? Like not like, no, it's not that you can't question why I use this. You can't make me question why I use this, because I know down to a science how it affects my body, my endocannabinoid system. I now know what dosages I need to take. I know what I'm regulating in my body when I take it. Even before I got these diagnoses, I had been treating myself, right?
Yeah.
But I cannot purely look at it as a like a non-biased, or like, from the best way of stating it, someone else asked me, his name is Luke, and with LMC, and he was like, do you a lot of like legal businesses, they tend to just look at the business, the industry of cannabis, right? And they leave out the culture. And I was like, you can't leave out the culture, because the culture is the reason why there's a business, right? Like you're like the fact that your countrymen knew enough to fight because it's used culturally, that we have to maintain this one piece in this legislation to that you're banning, like that is culture. And so to just take away that means you can't connect to the elders in your community and talk to them about the current business of cannabis, because they don't understand the current business of it, but they understand the culture. And when you speak from the culture, they are more accepting of what you have going on, which is why I can never just hold on to the science, because the science can only get me through to a certain percentage of an audience. But when I start talking about my experience, right? Okay, so I had surgery and I used edibles to help deal with my pain from this procedure. Now I'm getting another audience. Okay, I have mental health issues, and my mental health issues are regulated as a result of my continuous use of this. Now I have a different audience, right? So but furthermore, as a person who is fighting for equity within the industry that is as advanced as it is here in the United States, in different, coasts, depending on state legislation, I have to advocate for the culture, because what they tried to do with the legalization, the creation of the industry within the United States, is erase the culture. They criminalized it. They put the culture in jail, right? And so if I don't fight for the culture having as much right to this industry, then I'm denying the data that we have, where indigenous tribes used it for spiritual practices eons ago. Like they've been using this to heal the trauma within our communities for such a long time, and that is something that you can't take culture away from, because it's a cultural practice every single time, right? So I wholeheartedly, I mean, like, I see what you're saying in the aspect to I don't know, create generational wealth for your family and do a family business. You must understand the business and the science of cannabis. But I have seen those that forget culture that understand the business, and their business is lacking. The quality of their products are a little bit lackluster. They're well known. They're well-known organizations, but the true cannabis community doesn't generally respect those people.
There's no soul. There's no soul in their products.
Right. They're not sold. They're like, and you can think of huge brands, multi-state operators right now that have an industry, that have holds, but the culture doesn't really. It's the hype boy users that push it. But you talk about someone who's been smoking cannabis for 20 years, nah, that's garbage. Or they'll give you a very poor review of that whole organization or that product because they don't feel the culture of cannabis represented.
Yeah.
So I just some
and the funny thing is, culture is just something like, I mean, you can't buy it. You cannot like spend money. You cannot give money to a marketing agency and be like, hey, create some culture for me. Give me culture. Like, you can't do that. It comes from within. It's a very, very genuine feeling. Like, I mean,
right.
You consciously have to, like, direct your thoughts in that direction, direct your energy, put your time, efforts, energy in that direction to, like, to invest in that culture, to, like, bring
Promote
that
it.
out in your product,
Yes.
promote it,
You have to
honor
live it, not even just
Yeah.
like invest in it. Because as much as I want to invest, I can spend a ton of products as a cannabis consumer. You can spend, like, you can have a whole weed budget dedicated daily, but until you are aware of how that it's impacting your body and you can communicate it, you like, how do I you'll fail to create, like, to bring like-minded people to you, right? And I told someone, I was like, I have never had trouble finding quality cannabis, no matter what country I've been in, no matter what job I worked, what state, it doesn't matter. If I will find it, and simply because I'm very attuned to the culture of cannabis. It is a piece of me, and I can see it in someone else easily. Like, and it's just as simple as walking into the room and sitting down and lighting a joint. Like, I can be in the corner lighting a joint, and how it smells, you'll see a few people turn and look, and I'm like, oh, you're a stoner. You're like, I know you. I see myself in you. And
You're my people.
right. And so you're right. You have to live it. You have to walk it. And someone who loves cannabis doesn't care, like really loves the culture of cannabis and embraces it in everything they do, doesn't even like blink when they get negative looks for their use of this product, because it shines through. Like, you can't shake my belief in how this is helping me. And if you want to talk to me about it, I'm an individual that I'll talk back. I will talk back, and I'll educate you based off of what I know. And 9 times out of the 10, that person who had a negative view now has a positive view, or at least like now questions where they got that negative view from, because culture all along has been saying this is helpful to you. Right. Yeah. So it's more recent that this concept of that it's hurtful to you has like taken hold. And so all I have to do is reach past the recent programming to the culture that has always existed within you, and explain, like, and simply by sharing the culture that exists within me. And then it's like, okay, I get it.
Very well said. Very well
said. Sorry. So then I would just say, like, with partnering with a new brand, how do you go about fulfilling their merchandise needs? Like, we talk about like all of this education. We're switching gears a little bit. We're talking, but I think it's also timely with talking about culture, because you've got to be able to assess that company. So like, how do you do it when you're trying to get them the right kind of products made out of plant-based material?
So the first thing is, I always ask them about their journey. Like, I mean, I asked them, how did they get into this line of work? I mean, because see, even when it comes to sustainable fabrics or plant-based fabrics, hemp is not the only one. There are loads of others out there. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you and say that, oh, this one plant is like, the solution to everything, and this is the only sustainable fabric out there. There are others out there as well. So I'm always curious as to how did they stumble upon hemp fabrics? How did they get into this whole hemp fabrics, hemp clothing scene? So that story, whatever they tell me, that tells me a lot about them, about their company, and about what they're trying to do there. And yeah, I mean, so far, I mean, I've never met a client or found a client who I've not wanted to work with. I mean, they all have interesting stories. They all, they understand what this plant represents, what this plant stands for. So I've been very fortunate that way, I guess. And yeah, I mean, after that, we just show them our collection, and we have a very versatile collection of hemp fabrics, over 35 different blends, like both pure and mixed with other material. So yeah, I mean, we give them that, we ask them to go through it, and then they tell us which material they want to use to create what kind of a product. Or sometimes it's the other way around as well. They tell us that, hey Shikhar, we're looking to create t-shirts, what would you recommend? And then I kind of send them like, okay, so for t-shirts, these 4 or 5 fabrics, these are nice, you could check them out. And then they kind of basically, after we've narrowed down on the finished product that they want to create, we start working on what material, which particular fabric from our collection are they going to use to create that product. And after that, yeah, I mean, we collaborate, we design the finished article of clothing, and yeah, the ball, I mean, you know what I'm talking
I
about.
know
We've been
exactly
through
what
this
you're talking
process.
about because we went through it
We've
with
been through
these
this process
designs, and
together.
man, I did not know. I was like, I'm gonna have to get back to you and Google, because what is a GSM? What is like the thickness? I started research, and now I'm reading up on different plant-based material, like what combinations lead to the softest fabric. There is, when you want to make a t-shirt, I know it seems simple as like ordering t-shirts, but when you want to make a plant-based t-shirt and you want to have direct control and access and support those on the ground doing it, know that you are going to have months, if not years, of conceptualizing down if you don't know anything about it in advance. So before you call him, do a little bit of research. Do a little bit of research. But he is a guide. Y'all have been a guiding light through the entire time. Like, you were so kind to just like explain all of that as we were processing.
No, I mean, see, I totally get it, because I'm also not from a fashion textile background, right? So when I started out, because I'll be honest with you, so how I started with fabrics was I knew I wanted to work with the cannabis plant, right? But the other aspects of it, now let's say you want to make food or medicine or whatever, it was there are a lot of restrictions around it. But fabric, on the other hand, was still very well regulated and had less restrictions, at least in India, right? So I thought, hey, how hard can it be to make a shirt, right? Let me get into fabrics, and that's how I started. And boy, was I wrong. It is hard to make a shirt, it is hard to make a t-shirt. It is not as simple as it seems. I mean, there was a huge learning curve for myself. So whenever, my clients, when they come to me and they say, hey Shiko, we don't have a background in clothing or fashion, I'm like, I got you, trust me, I do. I
And you
totally feel
do.
you. And
You really
yeah.
do. So, well then, what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of switching to plant-based clothing production as a company? Like, if you had to
Okay.
tell someone.
So this is a very good question, actually, because on the consumer side of things, everyone wants to be a conscious consumer. They want to go for they want to buy things that kind of don't have a negative impact on the planet, and that is great. That is a great trend. But on the other side of things, the business side of things, the production side of things, I feel so one aspect is there's the technology aspect, right? Because now that you're working with a totally new material, in certain cases, what happens is the existing infrastructure that you have, that you probably used for some other material, might be totally redundant. Like, you might have to invest in completely new infrastructure to kind of process that new material and create products from it. So that's you could say that's one challenge. And the second challenge, what I would say, is that see, even though the demand of sustainable plant-based products is going up, but it is still not at a level where the economies of scale kind of work out. Just to give you a simple example, like the cotton fabric, the cotton industry, it has been around for hundreds of years, right? And so many most of the clothes around the world are made from cotton. So that demand is pretty high. So when the demand is that high, you're able to produce the materials and at a very, very cheap, good economical cost. But on
Facts.
the other hand, for these plant-based substances, even though the demand is increasing, it's increasing every day. Like more and more people are becoming aware, and they want to kind of make amends, switch, go for alternatives. But the demand is still not at a level where these things can be produced at a economic rate. So my point being that as an end consumer, if you're going for something that is sustainable, if you're going for something that is plant based, you kind of have to be willing to pay a premium for it. Because again, it's not that the businesses are trying to get a heavy margin out of you. It's just that the demand for that product is not that high yet.
The
it's just
startup cost is high, and
yeah,
so the
yeah,
end cost is higher. Very simple.
yes,
Like it's
yes.
simple. Like all you have to do is take one economic class, and you get it.
Exactly. So that's these are two things that I would say uh, could potentially be the downside of switching to probably a plant-based production or whatever. But apart from that, it's fairly simple. The at least in terms of the quality, just because it's a sustainable material, it's a plant-based material, it doesn't mean the quality is flimsy or it doesn't feel good. It feels
Right.
great. There's no compromise there. And
And
there are loads of other functional benefits as well. Take hemp fabrics for instance, right? So now these fabrics, they reflect 90% of the UV rays that fall on them, versus like 30 to 40% when it comes to cotton. So now let's say, hypothetically, now let's say you're a person who's into, who loves getting inked and who has cute sleeves, of tattoos. So now to protect those tattoos, I feel you should go for a hemp-based t-shirt, because it'll provide you better protection from the UV rays. And you kind of and people who are into getting ink, they invest a lot of money into their tattoos, and it means a lot to them. Okay, I did not know that. Yeah,
absolutely
you
do.
are into tattoos now, so you know what I'm talking about, right? People do invest a lot of money, a lot of thought, a lot of emotion behind each artwork. It means something. So now, why are you letting this UV rays kind of corrode it over a period of time? Invest in a better t-shirt. Invest in a t-shirt that provides better protection, to your inks.
Yes, this is that age. That is a very valid point. Something I learned something. I always learn something in talking to you, but I think valuable for our listeners, like and a very representative of the Bakersman lifestyle, which is how we even got to networking, if you want the world to be a better place, you have to invest in it. And so if we are
Yes.
looking to dealing with our climate change issues and all the like if we're not really going to stop these large corporations from having as dramatic of an impact, then we need to take some protective measures as a community. So if the sun's getting hotter, maybe we need to go back to wearing things that protect us a little bit better from the sun. And it's something as simple as natural hemp-based products. Like that switch can help you deal with the outside. And if you invest in more products like this, if we increase the demand, your costs will eventually come down. And in the age of Aquarius and where things are switching, I think as an individual who the Bakersmen tend to represent the a little bit of the elite cannabis consumer, like we are open to everyone. We want you to join us over here, but we are very educated and purposeful with our use, which is why even from the beginning, I wanted to start with plant-based material. Like I wanted to not have something that's going to leave a negative impact on the world or on a person. Like we want to ensure anything we do, we better your life from it. And so down to protecting you more from UV rays, like that, just know that with everything you do, you can make a conscious switch for the better of the whole community, a better, you know what I mean? Like the greater good. And it's like just a t-shirt you order. Something so simple. Right.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you for being a part of that process this entire time. So I guess I would like, you know, we're kind of coming to the close of the conversation. We done hit and so many wild things along the way. What would you want, one final thing you would want the world to know about hemp? Like,
One final thing I'd like the world to know about hemp.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, I mean, one thing is that you can literally create a world, literally an entire world using just this one plant. Like the room that you're sitting in right now, that entire room could be made using just this one plant. That includes the table, that includes the walls, that includes your clothes, that includes the food that you consume, everything. Even the plastics that you're using around you, right? That could be made from just this one plant. So yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that I would want the world to know. I mean, like, uh I can't do everything alone, right? So now we need different people with different skill sets, with different expertise to come together and build a world using cannabis. And it is plausible. It's not something far-fetched. It's not something like, it's not a dreamy fiction fantasy world. It's very real. I mean, there are companies in India working on hemp wood. There are companies in other countries working with hemp plastics. I'm working with hemp fabrics. And so, yeah, we can literally create a whole new world using just this one plant. So that's one thing that I want everyone to know. Like,
Yes,
I
right.
mean,
Because and like I love the social media because that taps in to the social media trends and conversations of manifestation. And I find that a lot of people talk about manifestation as if it's like something you dream up and it like, yeah, in essence, but it takes work. You have to
yeah,
like take that dream and then work to make it possible so that it becomes part of your actual reality. And so like I have manifested the life I currently live by the full belief in the possibilities of the plant that can take me here. Like this isn't made up. I didn't get 10 years down the road to talking about cannabis in this space virtually and promoting it and selling it daily legally out of like nothing. It took work to get here, and all you have to do is decide you're going to accept that role, that amount of labor, and find like-minded individuals across, the world. Like
yeah,
we can create this next reality that is all plant-based if we just work at it.
yeah.
That's it. That's it, man. And well, what's next? What's next for your company? What's next for you? Because I want to hear it.
So, I mean, what's next is that, finally this whole COVID, these restrictions, all of them are gone. Like, I mean, we're all safe. We can all go out there. So now we're launching a consumer facing products brand soon. It won't be related to fabrics and clothing. The fabrics and clothing vertical will be going, but now we're kind of getting into cannabis extracts, medicinal cannabis brand. It's called Ganj. And yeah, let's see. I mean, the launch scheduled for a couple of months. So, right now that's the only thing on my mind. And yeah, I mean, really excited for that.
Right.
You know.
And listen, they, I'm telling you, from the work I've seen you put in on the fabric side, I know that when you're launching this, I feel your excitement, and I want this to be as successful as possible for you. So tag us so we can share it on our social media and promote it as well. I want everyone to find some way that this industry can help their family,
Yeah.
find success. So where can they find you on social media? Like where?
So, I mean, our website's angetaagro.com, ANGETHAAGRO.com. And our social media handles are the same. It's Angeta, ANGETHA_agro, AGRO. And yeah, I mean, that's where you can find us. And if you go on LinkedIn and you just type Shikhar Mishra, that's my name. Hopefully I'll be one of the first few people to pop up. And yeah, that's where you can connect, and we can do great things together.
Right. Listen, I have been saying it from the beginning, but functional potheads unite. Like, I want to find anyone that is like-minded and as educated as myself to continue pushing the message. Like, because without us, we've seen what mass media is going to say, you know, what they put out there. And we need to dispel it any way we can. So by putting out this, like, you know, pieces of work like Potheads, Pondering, and all of the series that we've done in the past, hopefully we can combat that negative knowledge. But simply start by having a conversation with your loved ones. Like, if you can change your immediate community, then you have no fear when it comes to the outside world. Like, I rolled up weed in front of my mom. Do you know what I mean? Right. You see the power in that statement. I rolled up cannabis in front of my mom, and it is now something where she's like, oh, you're gonna catch a little puff, and it's fully acceptable. When you can change someone that had that created fear, something I had to hide and never talk about, to something so accepted, do you think I care how you feel about it? I've got this power at home, you know, like, I've done something that I know people right now, grown individuals, fear doing. So start with your inner circle and spread out and spread the message. And as always, stay baked, my friends. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Potheads Pondering.